Hello and welcome back to the Cricket Nerds podcast. I am James. I'm joined by Benji and Zach. And today we're going to be talking about a little preview of New Zealand versus England in their test series. So it's quite an interesting one, actually. There's a few talking points. Obviously, England is currently at the absolute pits of their test career. The only way is up. We think, we hope. We just think that you can't sink any further than we have. But it's down to England to show us that we're wrong. So we've got Brendan McCullum, we've got Ben Stokes, we've got Rob Key, we've got all different people. We've got many people that don't have jobs anymore. And we've got what I would say is a new look side, apart from the fact that about 9 out of the 11 players have played in the last couple of test series. So, I want to turn to you, Benji, first. What's your sort of just overall brief thoughts on the England squad?
Yeah, so England have named their 11 for the test match tomorrow. Probably the biggest bit of news is that Matty Potts, as he's known, is due to receive his first cap for England, being preferred to Craig Overton as the third seamer, which is interesting because it gives England a relatively long tail. I'd say Potts isn't the most handy with a bat at number 8. I've not seen too much of him batting red ball, to be honest, but it strikes me that he's not as good as like an Overton or a Wokes would be. The top 7 largely remain unchanged from the West Indies and the Ashes. The only real bit of news is that Ollie Pope has come in batting at number 3. Interestingly, because he has never batted at number 3 before in his red ball career ever. As we'd expect, Root has come in at 5, Root's come in at 4, Bairstow 5, and Ben Stokes has dropped himself down to 6, which makes some sense. We've now sort of got 5 frontline batters, an all-rounder, Ben Foakes is the keeper who can hold a bat, and then our 4 bowlers. But there's not really anything too new. It's a bit of a meh type of squad and team. Like there's nothing that's going to revitalize England in there. There's nothing that's groundbreakingly new, but it's not bad. And I'm not disappointed, but I'm not ecstatic. I'd have been interested to see how it would have worked if we'd have managed to fit Harry Brook in there.
Yeah, I've got a bit of a theory, actually. I've got a theory as to why. So I think the reason that Ollie Pope's in at 3 is because we've got 2 options in at 5 now that are better than him. Because we've got Harry Brook, who is younger and he's in absolutely amazing form. And I think he's a little unlucky to miss out on this test match. But we've also got Johnny Bairstow, who was pretty much the only player from the last couple of test series to actually, increase his stock from his performances. The other one being Mark Wood, who then broke himself. So Bairstow, he's also coming off the back of 0 red ball play since the West Indies. So there are question marks. But I think Ollie Pope, I think this could be a bit of a last chance saloon with him in at 3, at least for the next few years, because, we've seen him as this really good potential, but I don't think he gets in that number 5 spot anymore because England are just bursting at the seams with so many good middle order batsmen we haven't even picked Dan Lawrence, for example, but he probably makes it into the side ahead of Ollie Pope. So that's my theory, but I agree with your sentiment that it is a bit meh.
Benji mentioned the idea of it being a sort of new look team, and I guess the only new look thing is that Stuart Broad and James Anderson are back in, which isn't really new look, but because they've played so many test matches, but they were missed out of the West Indies. And as soon as Stokes became captain, it was like, we need to get Broad and Anderson back in. And it would be great to see them bowling together again, as they should be. And I think England have tried to tinker too much over the last few years with things which haven't necessarily worked. And Ollie Pope batting 3, I think that's one of those areas where we're still tinkering. Like, there isn't a good number 3 that I can think of in England at the moment, other than maybe David Milan, but I think that ship sailed. So yeah, I can understand why they put Pope at number 3, but whether it will work or not, we're yet to find out. But yeah, New Zealand, they have, let's talk about them for a bit, because they've got a team which hasn't really changed that much over the last 4 or 5 years. It's a settled team. They are in a bit of a transition period because the likes of Ross Taylor has moved on. Who's the other wicketkeeper? BJ Watling. He's moved on as well. So they've got a few new spots to fill, but the players who fill those spots are generally solid, good cricketers. Their only real question mark is the opening the batting situation, because as we will remember, Devon Conway played his debut test match in England as an opener and scored a double century, a fantastic innings. And he's probably going to come in the middle order instead, which will be interesting. Will Young has been playing in the county championship and he's been batting really well at the top of the order, so I don't see him moving down. And then also looking at the bowlers, Trent Boult not playing because he just played in the IPL final, so he's obviously being rested for that first test. And then you've got some really good players to come in. So you've got Kyle Jamieson, who looks really exciting with the ball, very tall, big right-arm bowler. Tim Southey as well. We know what he can do. And Neil Wagner bowls a difficult overs. So they've got a really good bowling lineup, and it will really test this England batting lineup, who haven't been batting well. So yeah, I think they look a stronger team going into this first test match. However, you never know what can happen. First test at Lords, who knows? And there are plenty of matchups, some interesting matchups to go by, because New Zealand have packed themselves with left-handed batsmen, which I'm sure Stuart Broad will be licking his lips to bowl at.
Yeah, I could see him doing really well, because I mean, we've seen what he's done. Just look at David Warner, like an absolutely incredible batsman, and yet Broad's got him in the pocket. He's had his numbers so many times, and Broad's just got this ability to, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's his height, his pace, or just where he bowls. But against left-handers, he just looks really good. He always looks dangerous.
Yeah.
And in an interview that he's just done, he was saying that he's going to be looking for more wickets as opposed to economy. So I think him and Anderson are just going to be looking for to play really aggressively and hopefully get the ball right up there, nice and full and swinging and really horrible for the batsman. Because, this isn't a completely bulletproof New Zealand squad. They just got rolled over by the county 11. So, that could be future England, to be honest. if England get beaten here, I could see us just replacing all of them with the county 11, because they actually managed to win a game. But yeah, there are more matchups. Benj, what other matchups are there, mate?
I think an interesting one is going to be Kyle Jamieson, if he plays, versus Joe Root. Now, there's a potential question about one of Kyle Jamieson, Neil Wagner, or Matt Henry not playing if Ajaz Patel plays. We've talked about that a little bit, but it'll be interesting what that selection comes in with. But someone like Jamieson, very tall, bowls difficult lengths, and because of his height, gets that extra little bit of bounce with that red ball too. And he's bowled really well for Auckland recently as well, in their domestic tournament. And it makes me think about Cameron Green in the Ashes, because Cameron Green kept managing to get Joe Root out, and it was maybe the flat pitch, maybe the Australian environment, but it may also have been the fact that he had that extra little bit of height and generated a difficult bounce off that surface. And if the Lord service is going to, look like a decent track, it could present problems for Root. I mean, there has been a bit of rain this week, which may, cause that pitch to have a little bit, a bit softer, maybe a bit more in it for the bowlers later on down the line. So yeah, that'll be a really interesting matchup. I think another really interesting one will be looking at Kane Williamson, particularly. Like I think he'll very much be under the spotlight because he's not had a great IPL. He didn't really play very well during the Counters 11. He just seems to be going through a bit of a lull in form, which I don't know. James Anderson probably would be just love to get out there and have a go at him.
Yeah, it would be a real challenge for Williamson against players like James Anderson, Stuart Broad as well. Basically, due to the fact that he's not in form. And let's not take anything away from Kane Williamson because he is a very good player. He's definitely a better test match player than a 2020 player. But the IPL has kind of taken away some of his form. It's taken away some of his confidence. He is the sort of player who can come back from that. But it will be interesting to see him come back into form against those relentless line and lengths which James Anderson and Stuart Broad bowl, to really test his patience, test his skill with the bat. Because if the last thing you want to do is to be going at 1 and over against James Anderson when you're out of form, you want to be scoring those runs. So that would be interesting to see how he copes with that, especially with the burden of captaincy as well, because in a way, New Zealand are used to being the underdogs. That's what brings out the best of them. And at the moment, England are the underdogs going into this series. And yeah, with the pressure of thinking we're going to go to England, we're going to beat them 3-0. Is that going to happen? We'll wait and see. But anyway, going on to that, we've got series predictions. 3 matches. Do we think it's going to be 3-0 England, 3-0 New Zealand, 0-0?
I definitely don't think it's going to be 3-0.
What do we think? James, go for it.
I think I'm going to go for a 1-1. I think we're going to get, one of each result. We might get a bit of rain. Looking outside right now, very possible. But because I live in England. But yeah, I think we could see. I think the first match is going to be a draw, and then I think the second one and the third one will have differing victors. I think it might take. I genuinely think actually a lot of it will depend on Ollie Pope, because we've seen throughout years of Test matches that top 3 doing well makes such a huge difference to the success of a team. And the reason that England have won 1 Test match out of the last 17 is because our top 3 is so trash all of the time. And that's been our biggest problem. And I think Ollie Pope at 3 doesn't fill me with confidence at all, because he goes fishing outside off all the time. He can't really handle a swinging ball. But saying that, the difference between him being at 3 and 5 is probably about 5 overs usually. So we'll see. But that's my prediction. Benj, what about you?
I'm going to go 2-1 England. I think New Zealand are going to win the first Test at Lord's. But I think Headingley and Trent Bridge both suit English players. And I'm saying that because I think more so our bowling will probably come to the fore. With Anderson, Broad and Potts, I think the 3 of them will perform well at Headingley and Trent Bridge on pitches that swing, getting that early movement. But as you say, the crux of it, as Stuart Broad said, it doesn't matter how quickly you can get a team out if you've been bowled out for 150. So it does all come down to our batters and to make sure that those, 6-7 guys at the top of the order do contribute and get us up to a decent score. What I would also like to say though is that even though we've talked about it still being a very similar bunch of guys who are actually playing, from all the things that are coming out of the England camp, like all the interviews that Brendan McCullum's having, what Broad came out and said, there does seem to be a bit of a mindset change about the way that we play our cricket. And I think we're going to be more bold. We're going to be more attacking, more positive, rather than sort of the reserved and the calm and the let's take a step back sort of environment from the Silverwood Root era. I think the McCullum Stokes era is very much more, let's go by the scruff of the neck, let's take this fight to them. which I think will come out in batting and bowling. You mentioned it, James, earlier that Broad and Anderson aren't going to focus as much on their economy. Like McCullum came out and said, it's better for us to bowl a team out in 88.3 overs, going at a rate of 3.3 and over, than 124 overs going at 2.5 and over, because it gives our batters more time to get that score back. So I think just that boldness that this new leadership team might instill could be different. I'm saying this now. We're probably going to get 3-0 whitewashing in like a month's time, and I'll be here like, what's the same again? Zach, what do you think?
I think we'd be remiss to say there won't be a rain-affected draw somewhere
probably Headingley
in these 15 days. One of the days is 13 days, given how England play, maybe less. But yeah, I think one of the games there will be some rain-affected, which will cause a team to have to survive on the last day and maybe do so. And then in terms of the other games, I think I want England to win a game. I think it's more out of hope, really, that I want England to have at least a game win. So I'm going to say New Zealand will get another win as well. So 1-1 for me. I think if there isn't a draw, it's more likely to be 2-1 New Zealand than 2-1 England, realistically. However, you never know. Right, you never know. England could play very well under this new regime. I do think this mindset thing that you're talking about, Benj, is important, because McCullum, if you look at the New Zealand resources compared to England resources, they're on opposite ends of the scale. England have so much more money going into their cricket, so many more people going into the cricket, and McCullum was able to take a New Zealand team who were underdogs across all formats into being world beaters based on the fact that he got the most out of their players. And England, we've seen, they haven't got the most out of these players like Pope. Like Pope, when he first came into the England team, looked a million times better than he does now. And I think that's what we want to see. We want to see Pope at his best. We want to see Bairstow at his best, Alex Lees at his best, Zach Crawley at his best. And fingers crossed, McCullum can do that with these England players. So it's all to look forward to. Make sure you leave your predictions down in the comments of who you think is going to win. Give us some Cricket Nerds questions about the England summer, about the Test cricket. But yeah, it's all exciting. So make sure you like, make sure you subscribe and comment. Make sure you follow us on social media. We are at Cricket Nerds Pod. Listen to our podcasts on Spotify, Anchor FM, etc., etc. And we look forward to seeing you at the end of the Test match, which England will win. Come on, England.
Come on, England.
Come on, England.
See you later.